Hello everybody, my name is Nairi, this is Fly Little Birds, and I talk about childhood trauma, adoption, fostering, that type of thing. So if that interests you, please subscribe. So today we've got a bit of a story time. The title of the video is Self-Control, Self-Regulation, and I have a story about what happened with my younger son when he went away for a weekend. Now, my children are now in their teens, but they still don't really like being away from home. In fact, they really struggle with it. And so I'm going to say it's the longest time that either one of them would have been away from home. So 2 nights in a place where there are people that potentially they don't know and people that they do know, but a lot of people that they don't know. So we get him ready. I have a bit of anxiety leading up to it, but it's Army cadets, so actually it's something that is part of the training and part of them understanding what they're doing. He goes away, all right? Now we don't hear from him, which is a good thing, because obviously if he's texting us, messaging us to come home, then it's a bit tricky, because what do you do? Do you say try to stick it out, or do you go with it and bring them home? So we didn't hear from him. And on the day that he is coming home, my husband gets hold of him to find out what time we're picking him up and goes down to get him, brings him back. He walks in the door. My word, he looks like death warmed up. He looks horrendous. So I speak to my husband and he said apparently he has stayed awake all of last night and did not go to sleep at all. And it was part of a dare to stay awake all night, and that they pump themselves with energy drinks and sweets to stay awake. Now, I don't know why I'm laughing. I suppose it's not a surprise. Okay, it's not a surprise because this son really struggles to regulate and self-control. Okay, self-control is a big problem. I've talked about it on my channel before. The main problem that we're having is addictive behavior with his phone, to the point that not like a normal teenage situation. So don't come at me, it's not like a normal teenage situation. Literally, if we didn't try and regulate the phone at all, he probably wouldn't eat, he probably wouldn't sleep. So we're talking like quite serious levels here. Now, I think with this weekend away, the phone would not have been an issue because, you know, the Army cadets, I'm in the UK, it's like they don't mess around. They probably wouldn't have been allowed their phones very much at all. But clearly he managed to get hold of a huge amount of sweets, and clearly he managed to stay awake all night. So he comes in, doesn't really want to cuddle, doesn't want to speak. We're due to go out to a bonfire firework display with the family, and there is just no chance that he's going to be able to do that. So that's the first disappointment. And that's a disappointment to him because this is one of the favorite times of the year that he likes, because one of my relatives allows them to light the fireworks supervised, and they feel like they're having been treated as adults and they're in control of something quite, you know, adventurous then. And last time we had it, he absolutely loved it. He said this is one of the best nights I've had. So the fact that he can't even communicate, let alone go to this thing, is a massive disappointment. So I stay behind. I mean, that was a disappointment, but you know, I can handle it, so stay behind. And the first thing he wanted to do when he got in was have his phone, even though he could barely talk to me. So that was a no, of course. And made sure he'd had something to eat and drink, and then he just fell on his bed and he went into a really deep sleep. He then slept for a few hours, woke up, didn't know where he was really disorientated, went back to sleep, slept all night, and the next day he was really crabby and awful. Now, the reason why I want to talk about this is on different levels, really. The first thing is, and you can let me know in the comments if you have this issue. So if you're adoptive family, foster family, or you know a child who's experienced neglect or childhood trauma, let me know in the comments if you think this is an issue. Food, right? So I gave him quite a lot of money I gave him the maximum they were allowed to take because I didn't want him to feel like he was going to be different. And normally on these things, you do find that children do take quite a bit of money, whatever they're allowed to take. Obviously, I expect him to have a good time. I sent him with some sweets anyway. I expect him to be able to do more than what he would do at home. I expect him to have fun and also stay up till midnight and beyond and eat more of the sugary snacks than what we would do at home. Obviously, I want him to have a good time, but I didn't expect him to spend all of the money on sweets and energy drinks, and it was quite a bit of money. Apparently there was a limit to what they could spend on this, but what he did, he spent the limit and gave the money to a friend and got the friend to then buy the rest. Okay, no self-control. This is what this video is around. No thought about, there's something here for a reason. There's authority in place by adults saying this is the maximum that you can spend. You can see my cat meowing at me. He always does this when I'm in here. Nobody thinking, no, he's not thinking that is there for a reason, that there is a maximum spend on sweets and drinks for a reason. No, he gets around it, and we're finding at home at the moment that behind our backs, really whatever authority we put in place, whether it be what he should be watching, how long on the phone, hygiene, you know, all of it, he's trying to go behind us and do the opposite, which is really, really difficult for us because we know that we're putting things in place for a reason for him, and he's trying to get past that. So he gets past this point of authority from these people and he spends all of this money. So first of all, what I want to say is children that have been neglected often have a problem around food. So if it's there and it's accessible for them, then they will overeat. And in this situation, it was very much around sweets and snacks and things. But if you take them to a party or you take them out somewhere where you're not really regulating what they're eating, I'm sure you'll find like me, or many of you will find like me, that they cannot control what they eat. So recently we went to a party, and the first thing that happens with him, this is more around him at the minute, he just piled his plate with sweet, sugary part of what was available. He didn't actually get any sandwiches or anything that was concrete, you know, to line his stomach before going for all that. Self-control. He doesn't have it. He doesn't seem to have it at all. The worry about that is, of course, when he's not with us and we can't watch him, then he just goes ahead and does what he wants to do, and that has consequences. So he was quite ill when he came home. It wasn't just that he was tired and exhausted. He was actually said he felt unwell. He spent quite a long time in the bathroom. He had quite a bad stomach ache. And I said, do you think that's because of all the sweets you've eaten? And he said, yes. So he knew right away. So he was quite poorly. So I had consequences. I was quite worried about him. He also had a temperature. He seemed really, really unwell when he came back. And this lack of self-control just seems to get him into lots of issues and problems and struggles. It's the same around friendships. What he tries to do is manipulate them, and he'll come in and try and make trouble between people. He doesn't seem to be able to control that. He doesn't seem to be able to control walking into his brother's bedroom and just teasing him and annoying him. There seems to be a lack of self-control. And I feel like this is part of his development. When I look at it, and I feel like his age is 13, but are we looking at someone who's a lot younger? Sometimes the way he acts and behaves is more like a 7-year-old, 7 or 8-year-old. And this causes issues when, of course, you let them loose and they're going to be with other people who are their age. And therefore those people might know how to control themselves, but I find that both sons, to a certain extent, I don't want to just say that it's one son, and I'm not trying to be really negative about my sons. I'm just trying to put it out there so you can identify with what I'm saying. The self-control over food, particularly, both of our boys were very severely neglected when they were younger, so food has always been a bit of a problem, and having to know that it's there and overeating, and in this son's situation, actually eating the wrong things all the time. So that's the first thing. But anyway, we needed to get to the bottom of how this weekend went. And many times I asked my son, how did you get on? And he went, yeah, okay. I'm like, oh, there's something not quite tying in here. And I said, oh, you know, what did you do? He didn't really want to talk about that. But he seemed to think that he'd had a really good time. So the story progresses, okay? We'll move forward from just self-control and we'll talk about regulation, self-regulation. Now, it probably dawns on me after a while that part of this behaviour could have been because he was missing home and he was homesick, and that he hadn't actually done anything like this before. When it was quiet and when I could get a grunt or two out of him, because he really was in a bad mood the next day, I established the fact that he really missed us. He really missed the dog and he really missed us. So then it takes on a whole different slant, doesn't it? Because I then talked about, well, why did you try to stay up all night? Because he's done this before. When he went on a school trip, it was just one day in a camping thing in an area around the school. He stayed awake all night. He was the only one, but he stayed awake all night. And he told me then he was scared to go to sleep, and he was scared. So I thought, okay, well, let's just test out this theory. This is the curiosity side of PACE. If you don't know what PACE is, have a look on my channel. You'll find videos on it. And I said, is it possible you tried to stay awake because it was easier to do that than think about home, and you just couldn't go to sleep, so you tried to kind of make it work for you by staying awake? And he said yes right away. So bingo, we hit the real reason why. And I think the real reason why he went crazy with the sweets and stuff is because of anxiety, and yes, partly because it's to defy authority. It's partly about the self-control, but it's also about regulation. So he was trying to regulate for himself his emotional response to being away from home, and part of that was to overeat all the stuff he likes, and part of that was to stay awake, because I don't know, maybe he thought it would go quicker if he stayed awake. I don't understand, but a part of it was him trying to self-soothe, self-regulate to get through the weekend. Further to this, there's another part of the story and another thing why he was quite down. So it appears to be he did really enjoy the weekend and what was on offer, but the main thing that he enjoyed about all of it is he made some new friends. Now, this is where it gets really sad, okay? I think it's really sad anyway. We have lots of conversations about friendships at school, and he really doesn't have any. He has one friend that will keep coming back to him, and he spends time outside of school with, so it's not like he doesn't have any friends, but that friend will use him in school if he's not got his girlfriend or someone else around, okay? So my son spends a lot of time, break times and lunch times, on his own, and his reasons for this is that everybody else in his class or that he knows is weird. Everybody else is weird. So I said to him, everyone else that you come into contact with at school is weird and not worth a friendship. And he said, yes. I said, are you sure there isn't anybody? And he said, where do you want me to start, Mum? And then he listed off a whole load of undesirable things that people do in school, which, yeah, they were undesirable. I thought, blimey, I've always wondered about the school, but what, everybody's doing that? So I couldn't argue with him, because the things he came out with were things that I wouldn't want him to mix with. Because I said to him, if you stop looking for that one particular special friend all the time, and you just get into a group of friends, then you won't be let down, because you'll have more than one friend. And he's just like, no, I can't hang out with them because they do this, they do that. And I'm like, oh, okay, don't bother hanging out with them then. But in reality, there will be some people there that he can mix with, but he doesn't want to. And the reason why he doesn't want to is because he needs the friendships on his terms. He needs to control the friendships. He needs to call the shots. He needs to do what he wants to do. And he knows this. He knows that is his way or the highway. And that's his need for high level of control, but it's also his need to regulate his anxieties and his emotions. And the result of that, of course, is that he has no friends at school. So when he went away to this thing where he's only got to be friends with people for 2 days, these people are the best thing that he's ever come across, according to him. They are really good friends. And that's because he just needed to sustain it for 2 days. He also mentioned there was a boy there who, for want of a better word, was a little bit odd, and that he brought him into the frame and said, oh, come and sit with us. So he acted as the person to, I don't know, be inclusive. And he said, oh, I met this person and that person and we got on really well. He said when we sat down, because he went with someone from here where we live, when we sat down together, they would come down round, and we didn't know them before, but they sat with us and they made us feel welcome. And he was trying to draw a parallel, I think, to what happens at school, where people are probably not as nice and more, well, I don't know what the word is, but okay, probably more bullying goes on, because at this weekend away that would not have been allowed. Now my husband and I discussed this, and I said it's a shame. He said yes, but you only had 2 days to sustain the friendships, and that's so true. So I just said to him, you've got their phone numbers, you will be able to get hold of them again. At the minute he's not got his phone because he just needs a break from that phone, but he will be able to get in contact with them, and hopefully we will be able to encourage those friendships, although they live, as he said, over an hour away, and that would make it quite difficult. So that's the story, showing you clearly about self-control and how children try to self-regulate when they're not coping, and the effects and consequences that can have. And we are really struggling with this younger son at the moment. He's always been very difficult to parent. They both are, but we're really struggling to try and help him, and try to help him navigate the school system and find a way through. We can't homeschool him because he doesn't really want to learn, so we would have him at home and he would just want to be on his phone all day or gaming all day, and that's not a life that at the minute I want to choose for him. When he's older, it's going to be up to him, isn't it? But right now we're trying to help him as much as we can. Hope that's helpful. Hope some of it rings true for you. If it does, please subscribe. There is membership on my channel. Take a look, and I'll see you on Fly Little Birds. Thank you.